The world had become a graveyard. The skies, once blue and full of life, were now choked with ash and smoke. Cities lay in ruins, their towering structures reduced to crumbling skeletons. The streets were silent, save for the occasional screech of alien machinery patrolling the desolate landscape. Humanity was gone, or almost gone. Jake tightened his grip on the rusted rifle slung over his shoulder as he scanned the horizon. Beside him, Lily crouched behind a pile of rubble, her breaths shallow and quick. She clutched a small backpack filled with scraps of food and water bottles, their last lifeline in this unforgiving wasteland. They had been running for days, ever since the Vorthax swept through their hiding place like a storm, leaving nothing but death in their wake. The Vorthax weren't just invaders, they were hunters. Tall, insect-like creatures with gleaming exoskeletons and razor-sharp limbs, they moved with terrifying speed and precision. Their eyes glowed an eerie green, scanning every shadow, every crevice, for any sign of human life. And when they found someone, they didn't bother asking questions. Jake had seen it happen too many times. Entire families dragged out of hiding, screaming, only to vanish into the night. "We can't stay here," Lily whispered, her voice trembling. "They'll find us." Jake nodded, though his mind raced. He knew she was right. The Vorthax were relentless, and they always found their prey. But where could they go? Every safe haven that they'd heard about had already fallen. There was nowhere left to run. As if reading his thoughts, Lily pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. It was torn and dirty, but the words written on it were still legible. Asterisk Arctic Chamber Project. Classified. Asterisk. Below it were coordinates pointing to a location deep in Antarctica. Jake had found the note weeks ago, while scavenging an old military bunker. At first, he thought it was nonsense. A dead end meant to throw off anyone who stumbled across it. But now, with no other options, it felt like their only chance. "What do you think is there?" Lily asked, her brow furrowed as she studied the paper. "I don't know," Jake admitted. "Maybe nothing. Maybe something that'll get us killed. Or maybe—" He hesitated, unsure how to finish the sentence. Hope was dangerous these days. Believing in anything too strongly usually ended badly. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that those coordinates might lead them somewhere important. Somewhere safe. Lily tucked the paper back into her pocket and stood up, brushing dirt off her knees. "Let's go, then." The journey south was brutal. The temperature dropped with each passing day, and the wind howled like a living thing determined to tear them apart. Food became scarcer, and sleep was nearly impossible. Every sound made them jump. Every shadow sent their hearts racing. But somehow, they kept moving. On the 5th day, they came across another survivor, a man named Alex. He was older than them, with graying hair and a face lined with years of hardship. When Jake and Lily explained where they were headed, Alex's eyes lit up with recognition. "The Arctic Chamber," he muttered under his breath. "I've heard rumors about that place. Supposedly, it's some kind of secret military project. Something big." "What kind of big?" Jake asked cautiously. Alex shrugged. "No one knows for sure. Some say it's a weapon. Others claim it's a group of soldiers, super soldiers, designed to fight wars humans couldn't win. If that's true—" His voice trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Hope flickered in Jake's chest again, fragile but persistent. Super soldiers. If such people existed, maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide against the Vorthax. Maybe humanity wasn't completely doomed after all. With Alex joining them, the trio pressed onward, driven by desperation and the faintest glimmer of belief. They didn't know what awaited them at the end of their journey. All they knew was that they had to keep going. For the first time in months, they had a purpose. And in a world that had taken everything from them, that was enough. The icy winds of Antarctica cut through their worn jackets like knives, but Jake, Lily, and Alex pushed forward, driven by the hope that the coordinates would lead them to salvation. The map in Lily's hand was barely readable now, smudged with dirt and torn at the edges. Yet she clung to it as if it were the last thread holding her to life itself. They had been walking for hours across endless white plains, their boots crunching into the snow with each step. Finally, they'd reached a jagged cliffside where the ground sloped downward into darkness. At the base of the slope stood what looked like an old metal door embedded in the ice. It was massive, reinforced with steel beams and covered in frost. A keypad glowed faintly beside it, its numbers worn but still functional. This was it, the entrance to the Arctic chamber. "This place is real," Alex muttered, his voice low with awe. "I thought it was just a story." Jake didn't respond. He stepped closer to the door, brushing away layers of ice with gloved hands. His heart pounded as he examined the keypad. If this was truly a military installation, getting inside wouldn't be easy. But Alex knelt down, pulling tools from his pack. He was no engineer, but years of scavenging had taught him how to tinker with almost anything. "Stand back," he said. "Let me see what I can do." Minutes passed like hours as Alex worked, his fingers stiff from the cold. The keypad beeped erratically, then lit up with a steady green glow. The heavy door groaned open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Warm air rushed out, carrying the faint scent of machinery and something metallic. Jake hesitated before stepping inside, his rifle raised. Lily followed close behind, clutching her flashlight tightly. The corridor led them deeper underground, walls lined with pipes and wires humming softly. It felt alive, like the facility had been waiting for them all along. At the end of the hallway, they found another door, this one marked with a red warning sign. Alex tapped a few buttons on yet another control panel, and the door slid open silently. Inside was a cavernous chamber filled with rows of glass pods, each glowing faintly with blue light. Suspended within the pods were human figures, perfectly preserved. Their faces were calm, almost peaceful, as though they were merely sleeping. Jake counted 6 pods in total. Each contained someone who looked stronger, taller, more imposing than any ordinary person. "Super soldiers," Alex whispered, his voice trembling. "They actually exist." Lily stepped closer to one of the pods, peering at the figure inside. She recognized the insignia on their uniforms, a symbol she'd seen before in old military documents. These weren't just soldiers. They were elite warriors, created for combat unlike anything humanity had ever faced. But why had they been left here, frozen in time? Jake approached a console near the center of the room. Its screen flickered to life when he touched it, displaying information about the project. According to the logs, the Arctic chamber had been designed as Earth's last line of defense against extinction-level threats. The super soldiers were meant to awaken only if humanity faced annihilation. And clearly, that moment had come. "We need to wake them up," Jake said firmly. "If anyone can fight the Vorthax, it's them." Alex frowned, shaking his head. "You don't know what you're dealing with. What if they turn on us? What if they're not even human anymore?" "They're our only shot," Lily argued, her voice rising slightly. "We've got nothing else. Either we try this, or we let the Vorthax win." Reluctantly, Alex nodded. Together, they studied the controls until they figured out how to activate the revival process. One by one, the pods began to hiss and steam as the freezing liquid drained away. The first pod opened, revealing a man with sharp features and piercing eyes. He blinked slowly, taking in his surroundings before stepping out, muscles flexing as he adjusted to movement. "I'm Ethan," he said in a deep, commanding voice. "Who are you, and why am I awake?" Before Jake could answer, the other pods started opening too. 5 more figures emerged, each radiating strength and focus. They looked around, confused but alert, their gazes locking onto Jake, Lily, and Alex. For a moment, the room was eerily silent. Then Ethan spoke again, sharper this time. "Tell me everything." And so, Jake began to explain about the Vorthax, about the fall of humanity, and about the desperate hope that these awakened warriors might be able to save what remained of the world. Ethan listened carefully as Jake explained the situation, his expression unreadable. The other soldiers stood silently behind him, their eyes scanning the room with sharp focus. Each of them radiated an aura of strength and discipline. But there was also a sense of detachment, as if they were machines waiting to be activated. The Vorthax, Ethan repeated slowly after Jake finished speaking. His voice carried weight, like every word was measured before it left his lips. They wiped out humanity. Jake nodded grimly. Almost. We're some of the last survivors. We came here because we heard rumors about this place. About you. Ethan glanced at his teammates. Ryan cracked his knuckles while Claire adjusted her stance, her piercing gaze never leaving Jake or Lily. Marcus crossed his arms over his chest, his jaw tight, while Olivia brushed frost off her uniform with deliberate movements. Daniel stood near the back, quiet but alert, his hand resting on the hilt of a combat knife strapped to his belt. We were designed for scenarios like this, Ethan said finally, turning back to Jake. But awakening us wasn't part of the plan. Something must have gone wrong for humanity to fall so completely. It's not your fault, Lily interjected quickly, her voice trembling slightly. You were frozen down here, unaware of what happened above. But now you're our only chance. Ethan studied her for a moment, then nodded. Very well. We'll help you fight these invaders. But understand something. We follow orders, but we don't answer to anyone blindly. If we decide this mission is too risky for survival, we won't hesitate to pull back. Alex shifted uncomfortably at that statement. And what makes you think we can trust you? You've been asleep for centuries. How do we know you're still loyal to humanity? Ethan's eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer to Alex. Though he didn't raise his voice, his tone left no room for argument. We were created to protect Earth, not just humans, but everything that calls this planet home. That purpose hasn't changed. Loyalty isn't the issue here. Survival is. The tension in the room eased slightly when Claire stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. Enough talk. Let's assess the situation. What do we know about the Vorthax? Lily pulled out a small tablet she'd scavenged during their journey. She tapped through images and notes, showing the soldiers videos of the alien creatures attacking settlements and patrolling cities. The footage made even the hardened warriors exchange uneasy glances. They're fast, Ryan observed, leaning closer to get a better look. Stronger than humans by far. And those glowing eyes. They probably have advanced sensory capabilities. And their weapons are unlike anything we've seen, Marcus added, pointing to a shot of a massive energy cannon mounted on one of the Vorthax ships. If we're going up against tech like that, we'll need more than brute force. Olivia spoke next, her voice soft but confident. Then we adapt. Use hit-and-run tactics. Hit them where they least expect it. Daniel remained silent, though his sharp nod indicated agreement. Ethan turned to face the group. First, we gather intelligence. We need to see them up close, understand their patterns, weaknesses, and how they operate. Only then can we strike effectively. Jake hesitated before speaking. There's a nearby outpost. It's small, but it's crawling with Vorthax patrols. If we want information, that's the best place to start. Ethan considered this for a moment, then gave a curt nod. All right, we move tonight. But remember, one mistake, and we're all dead. Stick together, follow orders, and stay sharp. As the group prepared for their mission, Ethan approached Jake and Lily privately. You two seem determined, he said, his gaze steady. Why risk so much to wake us? Lily met his stare without flinching. Because giving up isn't an option. Humanity may be broken, but it's not gone yet. Not while people like us are still fighting. Ethan held her gaze for a long moment before nodding. Good. Keep that fire alive. We'll need it. With preparations complete, The team ventured out into the freezing night, their breaths visible in the icy air. Ahead lay danger, and perhaps a glimmer of hope. The team moved silently through the snow, their boots crunching softly against the frozen ground. The moon hummed low in the sky, casting pale light over the desolate landscape. Ahead, the Vorthax outpost loomed like a dark shadow, a cluster of jagged structures surrounded by glowing energy barriers. The hum of alien machinery filled the air, punctuated by the occasional screech of a patrol drone sweeping the perimeter. Ethan led the group, his movements precise and calculated. Behind him, Ryan carried a heavy rifle scavenged from the Arctic Chamber's armory, while Claire darted ahead to scout the area, her speed unmatched. Marcus and Olivia stayed close to Jake, Lily, and Alex, ensuring the civilians were protected. Daniel brought up the rear, his sharp eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of danger. "This is it," Ethan whispered as they crouched behind a ridge overlooking the outpost. "Stay low and keep quiet. We're here to observe, not engage." Lily adjusted the strap of her backpack, clutching the tablet she'd brought along. She knew this mission was critical. They needed to learn everything they could about the Vorthax if they hoped to fight back effectively. But the sight of the towering aliens moving inside the compound made her stomach churn with fear. Claire returned moments later, her breath visible in the cold air. "There are 6 guards on patrol outside," she reported in a hushed tone. 2 more stationed at the gate. Inside, I spotted at least a dozen drones and what looks like some kind of control room. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "We'll split into 2 teams. Claire, you and Ryan take the west side. Watch for patrols and document their movements. Marcus, Olivia, and Daniel, cover our backs. If anything goes wrong, we fall back immediately." "What about us?" Lily asked, gesturing to herself, Jake, and Alex. "You stay with me," Ethan replied firmly. "Your knowledge of the Vorthax could be useful if we find something important." As the teams dispersed, Ethan guided Jake, Lily, and Alex toward the eastern edge of the outpost. They moved cautiously, using the shadows to hide their approach. From their vantage point, they could see one of the Vorthax guards pacing near the fence, its insect-like body glinting under the dim lights. "They're bigger than I expected," Alex murmured, his voice barely audible. "How are we supposed to fight those things?" "We don't have to fight them tonight," Ethan reminded him. "Focus on gathering intel. That's our priority." Suddenly, Claire's voice crackled over the small earpiece each of them wore. "Movement detected. A patrol just doubled back. Looks like they're searching for something." Ethan cursed under his breath. "Everyone hold position. Don't make a sound." The seconds ticked by agonizingly slowly as the sound of footsteps grew louder. One of the Vorthax guards passed dangerously close to their hiding spot, its glowing green eyes scanning the area. Jake held his breath, his fingers gripping his rifle so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Beside him, Lily clenched her fists, trying to steady her racing heart. Just when it seemed like the guard might spot them, Claire reappeared out of nowhere. With lightning-fast reflexes, she hurled a small device toward the opposite end of the compound. It emitted a high-pitched whine, drawing the attention of the patrol. The Vorthax turned and rushed toward the noise, leaving Ethan's team safely hidden. "Good work," Ethan said quietly into the earpiece. "Now let's move before they realize it's a distraction." Taking advantage of the chaos, the team slipped closer to the outpost. Inside, they discovered rows of monitors displaying maps and data streams. Lily quickly snapped photos of the screens with her tablet, her hands shaking but determined. "These look like resource extraction points," she whispered, pointing to one of the maps. "If we can sabotage these locations, we might cripple their operations." Before they could gather more information, an alarm blared through the compound. Red lights flashed, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed nearby. The Vorthax had found the device Claire used to distract them. "Time to go," Ethan barked, grabbing Lily's arm and pulling her to her feet. The team sprinted back toward their rendezvous point, narrowly avoiding the swarms of drones now flooding the area. As they regrouped outside the outpost, Ethan gave a curt nod. Mission accomplished. Let's get back to base and figure out our next move. Though shaken, the group felt a flicker of hope. They had survived their first encounter with the enemy and learned enough to strike back. Back at the Arctic chamber, the team gathered around a large table in the main control room. The walls were lined with monitors displaying maps and data streams captured during their mission to the Vorthax outpost. Lily sat hunched over her tablet, scrolling through the photos she had taken. Her fingers trembled slightly as she zoomed in on one of the images, a map showing several large towers scattered across different parts of the globe. These are energy extraction points, she explained, pointing to the glowing markers on the map. The Vorthax are using them to drain Earth's resources. They're connected to some kind of central network. Ethan leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning the map. If we take out these towers, we might be able to disrupt their operations, but it won't be easy. Each one is heavily guarded. Ryan crossed his arms, his expression grim. We'll need a solid plan. Hit-and-run tactics won't cut it for something this big. Claire nodded, her voice calm but firm. We can split into teams, strike multiple targets at once, keep them off balance. Marcus frowned, tapping his finger against the table. Even if we manage to destroy a few towers, they'll send reinforcements. We'll need to move fast and stay coordinated. Olivia chimed in, her tone measured. And we'll need weapons, better ones than what we have now. Those energy cannons of theirs pack a punch. We can't go in unprepared. Daniel, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. There's another problem. These towers aren't just random structures. They're part of a larger system. If we knock out one, the others might compensate. We need to target the core, the central hub that controls everything. Lily's eyes widened as she flipped through more of the data. I think I found it. She pulled up an image of a massive tower surrounded by thick walls and armed drones. This one looks different from the rest. It's bigger, more fortified, and it's labeled as the primary nexus. Ethan straightened, his jaw tightening. That's our target. Take out the primary nexus, and we cripple their entire operation. But getting there won't be simple. Jake stepped closer to the table, his voice steady despite the weight of the decision ahead. It's risky, but it's the best shot we've got. If we don't try, the Vorthax will keep draining the planet until there's nothing left. Alex rubbed his temples, looking uneasy. You realize how dangerous this is, right? Even with your enhancements. You're not invincible. One wrong move, and we're all dead. We know the risks, Ethan replied sharply, his gaze unwavering. But doing nothing guarantees failure. We fight, or we die. It's that simple. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the gravity of the situation. Finally, Claire broke the tension. Then let's get ready. We don't have time to waste. Over the next few hours, the team prepared for the mission. They scavenged additional weapons from the chamber's armory, testing each piece to ensure it was functional. Ryan modified some of the rifles, adding makeshift scopes and stabilizers. Olivia worked on creating smoke bombs and other distractions, while Marcus reviewed the layout of the primary nexus, planning potential entry points. Meanwhile, Lily and Jake pored over the data, searching for any weaknesses in the Vorthax defenses. Alex helped them decode encrypted files, revealing vital information about patrol patterns and security measures. As the preparations neared completion, Ethan called the group together. Listen up, he began, his voice commanding yet calm. This mission is critical. Every second counts. Once we breach the tower, we won't have much time before reinforcements arrive. Stay focused, stick to the plan, and trust each other. Ryan cracked a small smile, though his eyes remained serious. Let's show these bugs what humans are made of. Ethan gave a rare nod of approval. Exactly. Remember why we're here. For Earth. For humanity. Now gear up. We move at dawn. Though exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone, a flicker of determination burned within them. They knew the odds were stacked against them, but they also knew that giving up wasn't an option. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead and fight for a chance to reclaim their world. The sun had barely risen when the team set out toward the primary nexus, their breaths visible in the cold morning air. The journey was tense and silent, each step bringing them closer to what could be humanity's last stand. Ethan led the way, his rifle slung over his shoulder, while Claire scouted ahead, her speed allowing her to check for dangers without slowing the group down. Behind them, Ryan carried a heavy pack filled with explosives, his expression grim but focused. As they approached the tower, its sheer size became even more intimidating. It loomed above the landscape like a monstrous sentinel, its metallic surface gleaming under the weak sunlight. Thick walls surrounded the structure, patrolled by Vorthax drones and guards. The hum of alien machinery grew louder with every step, filling the air with an ominous presence. "This is it," Ethan whispered as they crouched behind a ridge overlooking the nexus. "Claire, you're up." Without hesitation, Claire darted forward, disappearing into the shadows near the perimeter wall. Moments later, a series of small explosions echoed through the area, distraction charges she had planted earlier. The Vorthax patrols scrambled toward the noise, leaving a temporary gap in their defenses. "Now," Ethan barked, signaling the others to move. The team sprinted across the open ground, staying low to avoid detection. Olivia tossed smoke bombs as they reached the gate, creating a thick cloud that obscured their movements. Marcus hacked into the control panel beside the entrance, his fingers flying over the keys until the massive doors slid open with a groan. Inside, the tower was a maze of corridors and rooms filled with glowing consoles and strange alien equipment. Lily clutched her tablet tightly, guiding the group deeper into the complex. "The core should be on the top level," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We need to disable the security systems first." Ryan and Daniel split off to plant charges along key points in the tower, ensuring they could create chaos if things went wrong. Meanwhile, Ethan, Marcus, and Olivia headed for the main control room, where they hoped to shut down the automated defenses. The fight began almost immediately. As they turned a corner, a group of Vorthax guards emerged, their sharp limbs slicing through the air. Ethan reacted instantly, firing his rifle with precision as Marcus hurled a grenade into their midst. The explosion sent shards of metal flying, forcing the aliens to retreat momentarily. "We've got company," Claire shouted over the earpieces, her voice urgent. "More are coming." "Hold them off," Ethan commanded. "We're almost there." In the control room, Olivia worked quickly, bypassing layers of alien technology to disable the security protocols. Her hands moved with practiced ease, but sweat dripped down her forehead as alarms blared around them. Finally, the lights flickered, and the hum of machinery softened. The defenses were down. "Core room is clear," Jake called from upstairs, his voice cracking with relief. Ethan and the others rushed to join him, finding the heart of the nexus, a massive chamber housing a pulsating orb of energy. It glowed an eerie green, feeding power to the entire network. Ryan placed the final charge carefully, setting the timer for 10 minutes. Just as he finished, the ground shook violently. A towering figure emerged from the shadows, a Vorthax commander, larger and more menacing than any they had encountered before. Its exoskeleton shimmered with energy, and its glowing eyes locked onto Ethan. "You take care of the core," Ethan ordered, stepping forward to face the creature. "I'll handle this." The battle was fierce. The commander lashed out with incredible speed, its claws narrowly missing Ethan as he dodged and countered. Blood trickled from a cut on his cheek, but he refused to back down. Summoning every ounce of strength, he drove his combat knife into the creature's chest, causing it to roar in pain. With one final blow, he shattered its glowing core, sending the beast collapsing to the ground. "We're out of time," Ryan shouted, grabbing Ethan's arm. "Let's go." The team fled the chamber just as the first explosion rocked the tower. Flames engulfed the corridors behind them, lighting their path to freedom. They burst outside moments before the entire structure collapsed in a deafening roar. Breathing heavily, they watched the wreckage burn. Though battered and bruised, they stood together, knowing they had struck a critical blow against the Vorthax. For the first time in years, hope felt real. The destruction of the primary nexus sent shockwaves through the Vorthax network, both literally and figuratively. The massive explosion lit up the horizon, a fiery beacon that could be seen for miles. As the team regrouped outside the crumbling tower, their faces were streaked with soot and exhaustion, but there was a glimmer of triumph in their eyes. They had done what once seemed impossible. They had struck a devastating blow to the invaders. But the victory came at a cost. Ryan limped heavily, clutching his side where a shard of debris had pierced his armor during their escape. Olivia tended to a deep gash on Marcus's arm, her hand steady despite her own fatigue, and Ethan bore the weight of leadership on his shoulders, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the group. "We did it," Lily whispered, her voice breaking the silence. She clutched her tablet tightly, the device still displaying fragments of data from the Nexus. "We actually did it." "For now," Ethan replied, his tone measured. "This was just one step. The Vorthax won't give up easily. They'll retaliate, and when they do, we need to be ready." Jake nodded grimly, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "How much damage did we cause?" Lily scrolled through the information she had managed to salvage before fleeing the tower. The Nexus controlled most of their energy extraction systems. Taking it out disrupted their operations across several regions. Some of their smaller towers might already be offline. "That buys us time," Ethan said. "But not enough. We need to keep moving, hit them while they're vulnerable." Ryan forced a weak smile, leaning against a nearby rock for support. "Guess I'll live to fight another day, huh?" Ethan glanced at him, his gaze softening slightly. "You held your ground back there. We wouldn't have made it without you." Before anyone could respond, Daniel pointed toward the distance. A faint glow was visible on the horizon, a column of smoke rising from what appeared to be another Vorthax facility. "Looks like someone else got the message," he said quietly. "That outpost must have been connected to the Nexus. It's collapsing too." The sight filled the group with a mix of hope and sorrow. Hope because their actions were having an impact, and sorrow because they knew how many lives had been lost to reach this point. Humanity's struggle wasn't over. It might never truly end, but for the first time in years, they felt like they had a fighting chance. As they began the journey back to the Arctic chamber, the team reflected on everything they had endured. Claire walked beside Lily, her usual calm demeanor tinged with sadness. "I didn't think we'd make it," she admitted softly. "Not all of us, anyway." "We almost didn't," Lily replied, her voice trembling. "But we did, because we stuck together." Marcus joined the conversation, his injured arm bandaged but still throbbing. "It's not just about survival anymore. It's about showing the Vorthax that Earth isn't theirs to take, that humanity still has a spark left." By the time they reached the chamber, word of their success had spread. Survivors who had been hiding in nearby caves and abandoned shelters began emerging, drawn by the distant rumble of the Nexus's destruction. Among them were families, soldiers, and even children, all united by a shared desire to reclaim their world. Ethan addressed the growing crowd, his voice strong and unwavering. "Today, we showed the Vorthax that they can bleed, but this is only the beginning. If we want our planet back, we need to stand together. Fight together. Are you with me?" A chorus of cheers erupted, echoing through the icy cavern. For the first time in years, people dared to believe that victory was possible. As Jake looked around at the faces filled with determination, he felt a surge of pride and resolve. The road ahead would be long and dangerous, but they weren't alone anymore. Together, they would rise from the ashes of humanity's darkest hour and forge a new future. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. The war was far from over, but for the first time, he felt something he hadn't in centuries: hope. The days that followed were a blur of activity. The Arctic chamber transformed into a bustling hub of resistance, with survivors pouring in from all directions. Word of the team's victory at the primary nexus spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of rebellion across what remained of Earth. People who had been hiding in fear now stepped forward, ready to fight for their home. Ethan and his soldiers became symbols of hope, a reminder that humanity wasn't finished yet. Under Ethan's leadership, the group organized raids on smaller Vorthax outposts, targeting their weakened defenses while the aliens scrambled to recover from the loss of the Nexus. Claire used her speed to scout ahead, gathering intelligence that allowed them to strike swiftly and retreat before reinforcements arrived. Ryan, despite his injuries, coordinated the use of explosives, ensuring every attack dealt maximum damage. Marcus and Olivia worked tirelessly to train new recruits, teaching them how to handle weapons and survive in combat. Even Lily and Jake found their roles, using the data they had collected to map out enemy strongholds. But it wasn't just about fighting. The survivors needed more than weapons. They needed purpose. Ethan understood this better than anyone. He spent hours speaking with people, sharing stories of courage and resilience. "We lost so much," he told them one evening as they gathered around a makeshift fire. "But we're still here. And as long as we're breathing, we have a chance to take back what's ours." As the resistance grew stronger, so did its impact. More towers fell, cutting off the Vorthax's access to Earth's resources. The alien invaders, once confident in their dominance, began to falter. Their patrols became erratic, their attacks desperate. It was clear they hadn't expected humanity to rise again. Still, the war was far from over. The Vorthax regrouped under the command of a new leader, an even larger and more terrifying creature than the one Ethan had faced at the Nexus. This new adversary was relentless, leading waves of assaults against the resistance. Casualties mounted on both sides, and the weight of leadership pressed heavily on Ethan's shoulders. One night, after a particularly brutal battle, Ethan stood alone in the control room of the Arctic chamber. The monitors displayed maps of ongoing conflicts, each dot representing lives at stake. He clenched his fists, wrestling with doubt. Had they done enough? Could they truly win? "You look like you're carrying the world," a voice said softly behind him. It was Lily. She approached cautiously, holding 2 cups of steaming tea. "Thought you might need this." Ethan accepted the cup, managing a small smile. "Thanks. I guess I needed a moment to breathe." Lily sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the screens. "We've come so far. No one thought we could do it, not even us. But here we are, still standing." Ethan nodded slowly. "It's not just about winning anymore. It's about proving that humanity is worth saving, that we can rebuild, no matter how broken we are." The next morning, Ethan called everyone together. The chamber was packed, faces filled with determination. "This ends now," he declared, his voice echoing through the room. "We've shown the Vorthax that we won't back down. Now it's time to finish what we started. We march on their central stronghold, their last bastion of power. If we take it, we win." Cheers erupted, but Ethan raised a hand for silence. "This will be dangerous. Many of us may not return. But if we succeed, we give Earth a future. Are you with me?" The answer was unanimous, a roar of agreement that shook the walls. In the weeks that followed, the resistance launched its final assault. The battle was chaotic and brutal, but fueled by hope, they pushed forward. One by one, the Vorthax fell, until finally, the central stronghold collapsed in flames. When the dust settled, the survivors stood amidst the wreckage, exhausted but triumphant. The skies above began to clear, the ash fading away to reveal blue once more. Jake looked at Lily, then at Ethan. "What happens now?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Now we rebuild." And for the first time in years, the future felt bright. The days after the fall of the Vorthak stronghold were a mix of celebration and mourning. The survivors gathered in the ruins of what had once been a battlefield, their faces painted with both joy and sorrow. Fires burned brightly against the night sky, casting flickering light over the makeshift camp. People sang songs, told stories, and shared meals made from scavenged supplies. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through the air. But beneath the surface of triumph lay scars that wouldn't easily fade. Many had lost loved ones in the final assault, and the weight of those losses hung heavy on everyone's hearts. Ethan stood apart from the festivities, leaning against a crumbling wall as he watched the scene unfold. His expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed the toll the war had taken on him. Ryan approached cautiously, holding 2 bottles of water salvaged from the wreckage. "You should join them," Ryan said, offering one of the bottles. "You earned this moment as much as anyone." Ethan accepted it with a nod, though he didn't drink right away. "It doesn't feel real yet," he admitted quietly. "After everything we've been through, I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." Ryan chuckled softly, taking the sip from his bottle. "Yeah, me too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't have to figure it all out tonight. We just need to breathe for once." Across the camp, Lily sat beside Jake, her tablet resting in her lap. She scrolled idly through old photos and documents they'd collected during their journey, fragments of a world that no longer existed. "Do you think we can really rebuild?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Jake placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We have to try. The Vorthaks are gone, but Earth won't heal itself. It's up to us now." Claire wandered among the survivors, her sharp gaze scanning the crowd. Though she rarely spoke about her feelings, she felt a quiet pride watching people come together. Humanity wasn't perfect. It never had been. But its resilience amazed her. Even Olivia, who usually kept to herself, joined a group of children playing near the fire, her rare smile lighting up her face. Marcus worked alongside Alex and others to organize supplies and plan next steps. They knew the road ahead would be long and difficult. Cities needed rebuilding, crops needed planting, and communities needed restoring. But for the first time, there was hope instead of fear driving their efforts. As dawn broke over the horizon, Ethan called everyone together one last time. The crowd fell silent, turning their attention to him. "Today marks the beginning of something new," he began, his deep voice carrying across the open space. "We fought hard, not just to survive, but to reclaim our home. Now it's time to build, to create something better than what came before." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This won't be easy. There will still be challenges, setbacks, and sacrifices. But if we stick together, if we remember why we fought, we can make Earth whole again." Lily stepped forward, clutching her tablet tightly. "We found records of farms, libraries, schools, pieces of humanity scattered across the planet. If we work together, we can bring them back." A cheer rose from the crowd, followed by murmurs of agreement. Plans were made, teams formed, and tasks assigned. Some would travel to distant regions to gather resources. Others would stay behind to clear debris and start reconstruction. Everyone had a role to play. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Ethan looked around at the determined faces surrounding him. He thought of the centuries he and his fellow soldiers had spent frozen in stasis, waiting for a moment like this. And though the cost had been high, he knew it had been worth it. For the first time in a long while, Ethan allowed himself to believe in a brighter future. The war was over, and humanity had survived. Together, they would rise from the ashes and rebuild, not just their world, but themselves. And somewhere deep inside, he felt peace.